A stone carving in an ancient Egyptian temple appears to show a working light bulb. This single image has ignited a fierce debate that challenges everything we thought we knew about the past. By the end of this investigation, you will have the evidence to decide for yourself if a forgotten technology was real. We will explore a hidden crypt and examine a mysterious object connected by a cable to a strange box. How do you explain a modern invention seemingly depicted thousands of years before its time? Deep in the sands of Egypt, far from the bustling crowds of Giza, lies the sprawling temple complex of Dendera. For over 2,000 years, this sacred site has been a place of pilgrimage, dedicated primarily to the goddess Hathor, the divine mother of the sky, music, and joy. The main temple standing today was constructed in the final centuries of ancient Egyptian civilization, a grand finale of architectural genius and spiritual devotion. Its walls are a massive stone canvas covered in intricate carvings that tell stories of gods, pharaohs, and cosmic beliefs. But it is within a secluded, restricted part of this temple that our mystery truly begins. Tucked away in a dark, subterranean crypt, accessible only through a narrow passage, are the carvings that would ignite a modern firestorm. The Western world first learned of these strange images in the middle of the 19th century, when European explorers and Egyptologists, armed with new fervor for uncovering the secrets of the Nile, began documenting the temple's every detail. They meticulously copied the hieroglyphs and reliefs, and when their drawings of the crypt's peculiar panels reached the public, they caused immediate confusion. Here, in a space reserved for the most sacred rituals, were depictions that looked utterly alien. They showed figures standing next to large, bulbous objects, connected by thick cables to boxes that resembled ancient batteries. How could such imagery be explained within the conventional understanding of Egyptian technology? The discovery posed a riddle that was as tantalizing as it was baffling, setting the stage for a debate that would only grow louder with time. The air in the crypt is heavy with the dust of ages, and the light from a modern torch dances across a scene that defies simple explanation. Carved into the stone wall is a panel that has become the heart of the mystery. At its center stands a colossal, elongated object, its shape uncannily reminiscent of a modern glass bulb. This bulbous form is held aloft by a supporting pillar, a symbol known to Egyptologists as the djed pillar, a sign of stability and endurance. But the strangeness does not end with the shape. Inside the bulb, coiling from its base to its tapered tip, is a sinuous, snake-like line. This is the element that many point to as a clear depiction of a glowing filament. The imagery becomes even more compelling as you follow the bulb's base. A thick, rope-like cable appears to be attached to it, snaking away to connect to a small, rectangular box upon which a baboon-headed god is seated. Another figure, seemingly a priest, stands attentively beside the entire assembly, one hand outstretched as if in a gesture of operation or presentation. To a modern eye, the composition is startlingly direct. You are not looking at a symbolic animal or a stylized god, but at a distinct, complex apparatus. The bulb, the filament, the cable, and the power source all appear to be present, assembled into a coherent whole. How could such a specific arrangement be a mere coincidence? The visual parallel is so jarring, so immediate, that it forces a single, electrifying question to the forefront of your mind. What else could this possibly represent, if not a form of electrical illumination? Of course, the immediate visual is so powerful that it seems to demand a modern explanation. Yet the world of mainstream Egyptology offers a very different interpretation, one that asks us to set aside our 21st century perspective and step back into the symbolic mind of an ancient people. When experts in the field look at this very same carving, they do not see a light bulb. They see a beautiful and complex religious symbol, a story told in stone. The large, bulbous object is not a glass vacuum tube, but the blossoming petals of a sacred lotus flower. Inside this flower, the snake is not a glowing filament, but a divine serpent emerging into existence. This entire scene is read as a depiction of a creation myth, a moment of cosmic birth. The serpent represents the god Harsomtus, a deity closely associated with the dawn and the first light of creation. But this is a symbolic, celestial light, not an electric one. The djed pillar supporting the flower signifies stability, the foundation upon which this new life emerges. The box with the baboon god is interpreted as a shrine or an altar, and the priest is simply performing a ritual to honor this profound moment of Genesis. This interpretation is not a wild guess. It is grounded in a deep understanding of Egyptian art, where the same symbols appear again and again in different contexts. The lotus flower, for instance, is a common motif representing creation and rebirth, as it was seen to emerge each morning from the primordial waters. The image of a snake born from a lotus is a known mythological scene, completely consistent with their worldview, so the academic explanation is clear. What we are witnessing is not a technical diagram, but a spiritual one. It is a hymn to the first sunrise carved in stone for eternity. This view asks a crucial question of its own. Are we seeing an ancient light bulb, or are we simply projecting our own modern world onto a past we have yet to fully understand? This mainstream explanation, however, was not enough to satisfy everyone. In the late 1960s, a Swiss author named Erich von Däniken launched a radical new idea into the public consciousness. In his blockbuster book, Chariots of the Gods, he proposed that the relief in the Dendera crypt was not a lotus flower at all, but a detailed depiction of an electric light bulb. His argument was built on that powerful visual similarity, but he took it a crucial step further. How, he asked, could the ancient Egyptians have created such magnificent, detailed art deep inside pitch-black tombs and temples without a permanent, powerful light source? He pointed to the soot marks found in some tombs, which are traditionally explained by the use of oil lamps or torches, and declared it impossible. The intricate carvings and the absence of overwhelming soot in many places, he argued, were evidence of a cleaner, more advanced technology. Von Däniken and other proponents of what is called the paleo-contact hypothesis suggested that this technology was not invented by the Egyptians themselves. They proposed that these devices were gifts from extraterrestrial visitors, advanced beings who shared their knowledge with early civilizations. In this view, the Dendera relief was not a spiritual symbol, but a technical manual of sorts, a record of the alien technology that allowed the pyramids and temples to be built. This theory transformed the carving from a simple mystery into a profound question about the very origins of human ingenuity. Was our history a slow, steady climb, or was it punctuated by contact from the stars, giving us a technological head start that we later forgot? The shape of this so-called bulb is the very core of the controversy. When you strip away the symbolic interpretations and just look at its form, the resemblance to early electrical prototypes is genuinely startling. Look closely at the carving. The object is not a simple oval. It has a distinct, elongated pear shape, wider at the base and tapering to a narrower tip. This is not the shape of a lotus flower in full bloom, which would be more rounded and open. This specific contour is a near-perfect match for early experimental light sources like the Crookes tube or the Jaissler tube, devices from the late 19th century that were the direct predecessors of the modern light bulb. These tubes were glass envelopes, often pear-shaped, designed to contain a low-pressure gas through which an electrical current could be passed, creating a visible glow. The ancient carving even seems to show a socket-like base, a point of attachment for the thick cable that connects it to the box. If this was intended to represent a working device, what materials could the Egyptians have used to build it? They were master craftsmen in gold and copper, both excellent conductors of electricity. A filament could have been fashioned from a thin, coiled wire of these metals. The glass bulb itself presents a greater challenge, as fine, clear glass blowing was not a common Egyptian technology, but they were capable of creating faience and other vitreous pastes. Could they have sealed a conductive metal within an airtight crystalline vessel? It is a tantalizing possibility. The internal serpent, coiling from the base to the point, mirrors the exact path a filament would take inside a tubular lamp. Is this repeated visual just a string of incredible coincidences, or are we looking at the fragmented blueprint of a lost invention? But the most compelling argument for a technological device lies coiled right at its heart. That serpentine line winding its way up the center of the object is the crux of the entire debate. From a modern standpoint, it is impossible to ignore its function as a filament. In any incandescent bulb, the filament is the component that glows white-hot when an electrical current passes through it, and it is always suspended within a vacuum or an inert gas. Why? Because if oxygen were present, the filament would instantly burn up and disintegrate in a process called oxidation. This is not a minor detail. It is the fundamental principle that makes an electric light possible. So if the ancient Egyptians were depicting a working light, they would have to understand this principle. The carving shows the serpent sealed entirely within the bulbous container, isolated from the outside air. Could this be a symbolic representation of a vacuum or a protective gas like argon, a concept we only mastered in the modern era? The idea seems absurd until you consider the context. The Egyptians were brilliant chemists and alchemists. They understood the properties of different gases and the effects of sealed environments through their advanced practices in mummification and metallurgy. Creating a crude vacuum by heating a sealed container or displacing air with another gas was not beyond the realm of their capabilities. The visual metaphor is startlingly precise. A snake, often associated with energy and danger, is contained within a protective vessel where it emits light without being consumed. This is not a serpent being born from a lotus. It is a brilliant filament safely enclosed doing its work. The question then becomes not just about a shape, but about a profound understanding of physics. Did they stumble upon the secret to containing light itself? This cable is not a casual detail. It is a thick, braided line, unmistakably connecting the base of the bulb to a separate, mysterious box. In our modern world, this is the power cord, the essential conduit that delivers energy from a source to a device. The carving seems to understand this relationship perfectly. The box itself, often overlooked, is a critical piece of the puzzle. Upon it sits a deity, which some interpret as a representation of the power source itself, a kind of divine battery or generator. But what kind of energy could this system be channeling? This is where the djed pillar enters the scene, not just as a simple support, but as a potential key to the entire apparatus. The djed is one of the most ancient and powerful symbols in all of Egyptian iconography. It is universally understood to represent stability, endurance, and the backbone of the god Osiris. Yet its form is highly suggestive. It is a tall, column-like object with distinct crossbars, a design that bears a striking resemblance to a high-voltage insulator, the kind you see on modern power lines that prevent dangerous electricity from discharging into the ground. Could the Egyptians have been representing an insulating device, something to safely channel a powerful, unseen force? This interpretation connects the symbol's abstract meaning with a potential physical function. The djed pillar provides stability by controlling a volatile power, preventing it from running wild. It is the anchor that makes the dangerous energy usable and safe, a perfect metaphor for both spiritual and electrical stability. So we have a complete circuit, the box as an energy source, the cable as a conductor, the djed as an insulator, and the bulb as the emitter. The pieces fit together with an eerie, logical consistency. Could this entire panel be a symbolic representation of a technology that harnessed the very essence of power, a force they understood as both divine and physical? The priest stands as the human element in this strange tableau, his role as vital as any component in the machine. He grips the base of the bulb-like object firmly, his posture one of control and deliberate action. This is not a man passively observing a miracle, but an operator engaged in a precise task. His other hand is raised, perhaps to adjust the device or to signal its activation. This intimate interaction is the clearest argument against the scene being a purely abstract myth. Why would a priest be physically handling a god emerging from a lotus flower? His practical involvement suggests a tangible technology, something that required human management to function. His focus is directed toward the box beneath his feet, the potential heart of the entire system. This rectangular object, often overlooked, is where the mystery of power truly begins. Theorists point to a fascinating real-world parallel discovered not far from Egypt's borders, the Baghdad Battery. Found in Iraq, this ancient artifact consists of a clay jar, a copper cylinder, and an iron rod. When filled with an acidic electrolyte like vinegar or wine, it can produce a small electrical charge. While a single such cell would not power a bright light, dozens of them connected in a series could create a significant voltage. The box in the carving could represent a bank of such cells, a contained power supply. The baboon god seated upon it might be a symbolic representation of the volatile, energetic force contained within, a divine metaphor for electrochemical energy. Imagine the priest completing the circuit, his hands acting as the final connector. A faint hum, a spark, and then a brilliant, contained glow erupts from the serpent within the bulb. This interpretation transforms the entire panel from a static religious image into a dynamic snapshot of a working ritual, a ceremony of illumination that bridged the gap between the spiritual and the scientific. This practical need for light brings us to the most persistent physical argument in this entire debate. Venture deep into the heart of a royal tomb in the Valley of the Kings. You are far beneath the mountain, navigating a series of descending corridors and chambers, the air still and heavy. The final burial chamber is a masterpiece, its walls covered from floor to ceiling in the most exquisite and intricate paintings depicting gods, spells, and constellations in vibrant, unfaded colors. Now try to imagine a team of ancient artisans completing this work using only the flickering light of oil lamps or torches. The problem becomes immediately obvious. Open flames consume oxygen, filling enclosed spaces with smoke and leaving behind a telltale black residue of soot on ceilings and walls. Yet when these tombs were first opened in modern times, many displayed a stunning lack of this soot. The ceilings in places like the tomb of Seti I are often clean and bright, their original colors preserved. How could this be possible? If torches and lamps were the primary light source, the evidence of their use should be everywhere, coating the beautiful art in a layer of grime. The absence of this soot is a silent but powerful clue. It suggests that the artists must have been working with a light source that produced no smoke, a clean and steady illumination that allowed them to execute their precise work without polluting their sacred canvas. Could this be the real-world application of the technology depicted at Dendera? A brilliant electric glow that lit the way for pharaohs into the afterlife, leaving no trace behind but the art itself. The absence of soot is a powerful argument, but it is not a case closed. Mainstream archaeology offers a compelling and surprisingly ingenious alternative that requires no forgotten technology. The ancient Egyptians were masters of practical physics, and their solution to the lighting problem may have been brilliant in its simplicity. Imagine not electric bulbs, but vast arrays of highly polished copper or bronze mirrors. A team of workers could have stationed themselves at regular intervals along a tomb's descending corridors, each one angling a mirror to catch the sunlight from the entrance and bounce it deeper and deeper into the mountain. This would create a chain of reflected daylight, illuminating the deepest burial chambers with a clean, steady, and completely smokeless light. The Egyptians were expert metalworkers, capable of producing mirrors with incredibly reflective surfaces. This method would have provided the consistent illumination artists needed for their detailed work, leaving the ceilings pristine. Furthermore, the argument about oil lamps is more nuanced than it first appears. While simple torches would indeed produce smoke, the Egyptians had access to high-quality fuels like refined sesame or castor oil. When burned in a properly designed lamp with a controlled wick, these oils can produce a remarkably clean, nearly smokeless flame. There is also evidence from wall paintings themselves that show workers using small, handheld lamps. The soot that does exist is often localized and minimal, suggesting these were not smoky torches but efficient, well-managed light sources. So the question shifts: did the Egyptians need light bulbs, or were they simply so clever with the tools they had that they found an elegant, effective way to light the darkness? This counter-argument does not diminish their genius, it redefines it. It suggests that the true marvel is not a lost piece of technology, but the boundless ingenuity of the human mind itself. This single carving at Dendera would be remarkable enough on its own, but the mystery deepens when we look for echoes in other ancient cultures. Are there other artifacts or symbols that hint at a forgotten understanding of electrical principles? One of the most famous examples comes from Mesopotamia, the Baghdad Battery. Discovered in the 1930s, this peculiar object consists of a clay jar, a copper cylinder, and an iron rod. When scientists replicated it and filled it with an acidic substance like vinegar, it produced a small but measurable electric current around 1 to 2 volts. While it could not power a light bulb, it could have been used for electroplating gold onto silver, or perhaps for some religious or medicinal purpose that involved a subtle tingling sensation. This artifact proves that the basic concept of a galvanic cell was not beyond the reach of the ancient world. It stands as a physical, tangible object that challenges our timeline of invention, suggesting that the knowledge to generate electricity existed far earlier than we ever suspected. Then we have the biblical Ark of the Covenant, a device described in meticulous detail. It was a gold-covered box, and touching it incorrectly resulted in instant death, as if struck by a powerful force. The descriptions speak of it emitting light and sparks, with strict instructions for the priests to wear specific clothing when transporting it, almost like protective, insulating gear. Could this have been a capacitor storing a dangerous electrical charge from the atmosphere? These disparate clues, scattered across different civilizations, begin to form a tantalizing pattern. They suggest that the Dendera light might not be an isolated anomaly, but part of a fragmented, wider tradition. Was there a shared, ancient understanding of a powerful natural force, one that different cultures interpreted through their own symbolic lenses and technological capabilities? This possibility transforms the debate from a question about one Egyptian temple into a far grander inquiry about the lost chapters of human knowledge. The Baghdad Battery stands as a physical piece of evidence that the ancient world might have understood electricity. Discovered in the 1930s just outside Baghdad, this artifact is deceptively simple in its design. It consists of a small clay jar about the size of a fist. Inside this jar, archaeologists found a rolled copper cylinder sealed at the bottom with a layer of asphalt. Through the center of this cylinder, an iron rod was suspended, also held in place by an asphalt stopper. The entire assembly looks like a crude, ancient version of a chemical cell. When scientists and researchers like Willard Gray replicated the artifact in the 1970s, they made a startling discovery. By filling the jar with an acidic electrolyte, something as common as vinegar or grape juice, the device produced a measurable electrical charge. It was not a powerful current, only about 1 or 2 volts, but it was undeniably electricity. This was not a theoretical concept, it was a working, albeit simple, battery. The immediate question is obvious. What was its purpose? Some experts suggest it could have been used for electroplating, to deposit a thin layer of gold onto silver objects. a process that requires only a small electrical current. Others propose it had a religious or medicinal function, perhaps creating a mild, tingling sensation that was interpreted as a divine touch. But its existence alone is revolutionary. It proves that the fundamental principles of electrochemistry were accessible to ancient civilizations. This small clay pot shatters the assumption that such knowledge began with Volta or Galvani in the 18th century. It forces us to reconsider the technological landscape of the ancient world. If such a device existed in Mesopotamia, is it so difficult to believe that the Egyptians, with their advanced mastery of materials and chemistry, could have developed a similar or even more advanced power source? The box depicted in the Dendera carving with the baboon god seated atop it could very well represent a bank of these primitive batteries, connected together to produce a voltage significant enough to power a luminous device. Imagine a series of these clay pots all linked by copper wires, their combined energy channeled through that thick cable and into the bulb. The visual metaphor of the baboon, an animal often associated with Thoth, the god of knowledge, guarding this box of power, becomes profoundly fitting. It was not magic, but a guarded secret, a dangerous and powerful technology that only the initiated were permitted to handle. The Baghdad Battery does not prove the Dendera light was real, but it provides a crucial, tangible foundation for the idea. It tells us that the knowledge was there, waiting in the sands for someone to connect the wires. So we know they could potentially build the components, but did they possess the underlying knowledge of electricity itself? The intellectual legacy of ancient Egypt is a mountain of evidence pointing to a mind-boggling scientific awareness. Their entire civilization was built on a foundation of precise observation and applied mathematics. They tracked the stars with such accuracy that they could predict the annual flooding of the Nile, the event that dictated their agricultural cycle and thus their survival. They aligned their pyramids to the cardinal directions with a margin of error smaller than a single degree, a feat that requires a profound understanding of geometry and astronomy. Their architects and engineers calculated stresses, loads, and angles to construct monuments that have withstood millennia. This was not guesswork. This was a culture that thought in systems, in cause and effect, in the measurable laws of the physical world. The leap from understanding the predictable path of a star across the sky to grasping the flow of an unseen force like electricity is not as vast as it might seem. They were masters of hydraulics, channeling the power of water. They were brilliant chemists, creating permanent pigments and mastering the art of mummification. The concept of a powerful, invisible current, a force that could be conducted through certain materials like copper and contained by others, fits perfectly within their worldview of cosmic energies and tangible powers. They believed in a life force that animated all things, a power they called Heka. Could they have discovered a physical manifestation of that force, a raw energy that could be harnessed, directed, and even made to produce light? Their entire technological history suggests that if such a phenomenon presented itself, they would have been the people to observe it, experiment with it, and ultimately find a use for it. The real question is not whether they were capable of the intellectual leap, but whether we have simply failed to recognize the evidence they left behind. The true power of the Dendera carvings may lie not in what they reveal to our modern eyes, but in what they concealed from the uninitiated. To truly see what the ancient priests intended, we must step away from the glare of our own world and into the soft, symbolic light of theirs. This entire panel is a chapter from a much larger story, the epic cycle of the god Osiris. In this myth, Osiris is murdered and dismembered, only to be magically reassembled and reborn by his sister wife Isis, becoming the lord of the afterlife. The central figure in the carving, the large bulb, is not a lamp. It is the womb of the sky goddess Nut, represented by the sacred lotus flower. This flower was the Egyptian symbol of creation itself, as it emerged each day, pristine and beautiful from the murky waters of chaos. And the snake coiling within it is not a filament. It is the god Harsomtus, the child of this divine union, who is the embodiment of the morning sun. He is the first light bursting forth from the cosmic womb to begin a new day. This is not a story about turning on a switch. It is a story about the birth of the universe repeated with every sunrise. The djed pillar holding the scene aloft is the backbone of Osiris, the unshakable stability that allows for this cycle of death and rebirth to continue eternally. The priest is not an electrician. He is a facilitator of this sacred mystery, using ritual to ensure the sun will, in fact, rise again. His hand on the base is not activating a circuit, but grounding this cosmic event in a ceremonial act, making the divine manifest within the temple walls. Every element has a profound, layered meaning. The baboon on the box is a form of Thoth, the god of wisdom, presiding over the scene to signify the divine knowledge and order, or mat, that governs this eternal process. The entire crypt was a spiritual power station, not an electrical one. Its purpose was to harness metaphysical energies to ensure the regeneration of the gods, the pharaoh, and by extension, all of Egypt. The light they were concerned with was the light of creation, a force far more ancient and potent than any fleeting spark of electricity. The crypt itself is a powerful argument against a simple technological explanation. This is not a public gallery or an inventor's workshop. To reach the chamber that holds the controversial carving, you must descend into a cramped, windowless space deep beneath the temple floor. The air is still and cool, the passageways narrow, forcing you to move in a single file. This was a restricted Holy of Holies, a place reserved for the most sacred rituals and the storage of the gods' sacred barks, the ceremonial boats that carried their divine essence. Why would a straightforward diagram for building a light bulb be hidden away in such a profoundly spiritual and inaccessible location? It makes little sense for a utilitarian device. The context screams of secrecy and symbolism, not practical instruction. If this was indeed a working lamp to help artisans, its blueprint would be found in a craftsman's tomb or a workshop, not enshrined in the most secret heart of a temple dedicated to a goddess. The very placement of the relief tells us that its meaning was esoteric, meant only for the eyes of the highest priests who understood its layered significance. It was part of a mystery, not a manual. This hidden chamber was designed to protect and contain power, but was it the metaphysical power of a god being reborn, or the dangerous, tangible power of a force they could harness but not fully control? The silence of the crypt offers no easy answer, only deepening the intrigue. The theoretical debate finds its ultimate test in the hands of modern engineers. Across the world, curious minds have taken the Dendera relief not as a myth, but as a literal schematic, attempting to build a working device based solely on its ancient design. The most famous of these experiments was conducted by an Austrian electrical engineer named Walter Gahn. He meticulously constructed a replica of the entire apparatus, interpreting the bulb as a large glass vessel, the serpent as a copper wire filament, and the cable as an insulated conductor. He connected this to a power source modeled after the box in the carving, and when he activated the system, the result was stunning. The bulb glowed with a faint but unmistakable light. This was not a vague possibility anymore. It was a physical demonstration that the arrangement of components shown at Dendera could indeed function as an electric lamp. Other researchers have followed, creating their own variations. They point out that the bulb's elongated shape is ideal for containing a low-pressure gas, and the coiled filament perfectly positions the glowing element away from the glass to prevent overheating. These replicas are not proof that the Egyptians built such devices, but they are powerful evidence that the carving depicts a system that is electrically sound and functionally coherent. It moves the idea from the realm of pure speculation into the world of practical engineering. If a modern person can look at these symbols and build a working light, is it so hard to believe that the original creators were depicting a technology they themselves understood and used? The glow from these modern replicas casts a new, tangible light on the ancient stone, challenging us to see the past not as a dark age but as a time of potential brilliance. Yet for every point of connection, skeptics present a powerful and unified rebuttal. They argue that the entire light bulb theory is built upon a fundamental misreading of Egyptian culture, a classic case of seeing what we want to see. First and foremost is the issue of symbolism. The lotus flower and the serpent are not rare or obscure symbols, they are foundational elements in Egyptian art. You can find them carved and painted in countless temples and tombs, always carrying their specific mythological meanings. To isolate one single instance and strip it of this universal context is, in the view of Egyptologists, an intellectual error. The composition in the Dendera crypt is not unique. It is a standard, albeit beautifully executed, representation of a well-known creation myth. The so-called cable is identified in other contexts as a lotus stem or a ritual rope. The box is a shrine. Every component has a documented, non-technical purpose. The second major argument is the complete and utter lack of any physical evidence for an electrical infrastructure. If the Egyptians possessed electric lighting, even in a limited form, where is the rest of the technology? Where are the wires, the switches, the broken bulbs, the workshops for their manufacture? We have found countless examples of their daily lives, from combs and pottery to jewelry and tools, but not a single shred of electrical component has ever been unearthed. This absence is deafening. The Baghdad Battery, while fascinating, is a solitary, low-power object from a different culture, and even its intended use is hotly debated. It is a leap of logic to use that one artifact to explain a complex lighting system in Egypt. The skeptic's case is one of overwhelming context and profound silence. The carvings fit perfectly within the known symbolic framework of the culture, while the ground itself has yielded nothing to suggest a different technological reality. There is a magnetic pull to the idea of forbidden knowledge, a deep-seated human instinct that draws us toward what has been hidden or dismissed. This is the psychological bedrock upon which the Dendera light theory has stubbornly built its home, refusing to crumble under the weight of academic consensus. Why does this particular idea, against all odds, continue to shine so brightly in our collective imagination? It speaks to a fundamental tension, a timeless conflict between the official story and the tantalizing whisper of a hidden truth. We are captivated by the narrative of the lone visionary, the heretic who challenges the rigid orthodoxy of their time. History is filled with such figures, from Galileo arguing the Earth moved around the Sun to Wegener proposing continental drift, thinkers who were initially ridiculed before being vindicated. The mainstream explanation for the Dendera carvings, while coherent and well supported, fits neatly into the established canon of Egyptology. It is the orthodoxy. But the light bulb theory represents a thrilling heresy. It suggests that the timeline of human progress we all learned in school is wrong, that a chapter is missing, perhaps even deliberately suppressed. This is not just about a carving in a temple. It is about the possibility that our ancestors were far more sophisticated than we dare to believe, that greatness was achieved and then tragically lost. This narrative of a fallen, advanced civilization touches a primal chord. It offers a more romantic and mysterious past than the slow, painstaking crawl of archaeological progress. It transforms ancient people from our intellectual predecessors into our enigmatic peers, or even our superiors, who possessed secrets we are only now rediscovering. The appeal is powerful because it flatters our sense of discovery while questioning the authority of those who claim to have all the answers. We want to believe that we, the audience, can look at the same evidence as the experts and see something they have missed. This is the lure of the forbidden zone, the irresistible call of the locked door, and the question of what might be hidden behind it. The Dendera light endures not because it has been proven, but because the story it tells is simply too compelling to extinguish. That single carving has escaped the dusty confines of academia to become a global pop culture icon. Its journey into the modern imagination was supercharged by television, most notably through the long-running series Ancient Aliens. The show dedicated entire segments to the Dendera relief, presenting it not as a theory, but as compelling evidence of extraterrestrial intervention. With its dramatic narration, expert testimonials, and slick graphics, the program reframed the debate for millions of viewers. It was no longer a quiet scholarly disagreement. It was a prime-time mystery with cosmic stakes. The show's signature phrase, "ancient astronaut theorists believe," became a cultural touchstone, making the idea of Egyptian light bulbs feel both plausible and thrillingly forbidden. This media exposure did more than just spread an idea. It created a powerful feedback loop. The more people saw the carving on television, the more real it seemed, and the more they demanded answers that traditional archaeology appeared unwilling to give. This demand fueled a thriving industry of books, documentaries, and online content, all exploring the possibility of lost technologies. The Dendera Light was no longer just a strange carving. It was the poster child for an alternative history, a symbol of everything we might have forgotten. This cultural footprint extends far beyond documentary television, embedding itself into the world of entertainment. Video game developers, always searching for compelling historical mysteries, have eagerly incorporated the Dendera device into their digital worlds. In games like the Assassin's Creed series, which often blends real history with speculative science fiction, players can encounter and sometimes even interact with versions of this ancient technology. These games cast you as an explorer, solving puzzles and uncovering secrets, and the inclusion of something like the Dendera Light blurs the line between documented fact and imaginative possibility. When you, as a player, are tasked with activating a fictional ancient power generator that looks strikingly similar to the Dendera relief, the idea of it being a real technology becomes emotionally reinforced. It feels less like a far-fetched theory and more like an exciting part of a hidden narrative. This interactive experience is profoundly different from reading a book or watching a show. You are not just being told a story, you are living inside of it, and the game's environment implicitly validates the device's existence. The same phenomenon occurs in popular novels and comic books, where authors use the Dendera Light as a key plot device to unlock ancient mysteries or power-forgotten machines. In these fictional universes, the device simply works, bypassing the academic debate entirely and presenting a world where the mystery is already solved. This constant repetition across different media platforms has a powerful normalizing effect, cementing the image of the Egyptian light bulb in our collective consciousness as a cool, established concept, regardless of its historical veracity. The ultimate impact of this widespread media saturation is a fascinating divergence between public perception and academic consensus. For many people around the world, their first and only encounter with the Dendera carvings is through the lens of Ancient Aliens or a video game. This means their starting point for understanding the image is not a creation myth, but a technological diagram. The mainstream symbolic explanation, when they eventually hear it, can feel like a letdown, a dry and overly complicated denial of a more exciting truth. The media's framing has created a new kind of mythology, a modern folklore built around the idea of suppressed knowledge. The Dendera Light has become a shorthand, a single image that represents the entire concept of advanced ancient technology. It is instantly recognizable, easily understood, and fits perfectly into a 2-minute news segment or a game level. The complex, nuanced interpretation involving the god Harsomtus and the lotus flower requires context and study. It demands that you meet the ancient Egyptians on their own terms. The light bulb theory, by contrast, is immediate. It meets us squarely within our own modern world, using our own familiar objects as a reference point. This is the secret to its enduring power. It asks us to see the past not as a foreign country, but as a mirror, reflecting a version of ourselves that we desperately want to believe in, one capable of genius, innovation, and perhaps a spark of something truly magical. Once the idea of an ancient light bulb took root, it began to mutate into even more extraordinary forms. The simple elegance of a lamp was no longer enough for some theorists who saw in the same stone carvings the blueprint for something far more powerful. The bulb they proposed was not for illumination at all, but the heart of a communication device, a machine designed to send messages across the cosmos to its original designers. In this view, the serpent filament becomes a resonant antenna, and the entire temple complex a kind of interstellar switchboard. Other interpretations veer into the realm of ancient warfare, suggesting the device was a terrifying energy weapon, a primitive laser or directed energy cannon that could have been used to defend the kingdom. The most ambitious theory of all places Dendera as a single node in a vast, forgotten power grid. Proponents point to the sheer number of these bulb-like symbols throughout the temple, suggesting they were not standalone devices but interconnected components, drawing energy from the earth itself or from a central generator, perhaps hidden beneath the Sphinx, to electrify entire cities. These ideas push far beyond the evidence, but they share a common thread, a deep-seated belief that our history books are not just missing a page but an entire volume. They ask us to envision an Egypt that was not just advanced but technologically sublime, a civilization whose true capabilities remain locked away in plain sight, daring us to see the extraordinary in the familiar stone. Perhaps the truth of Dendera lies not in choosing one side over the other, but in finding a space where both can coexist. There is a compelling middle path, a theory that suggests the carving is neither a simple light bulb blueprint nor a purely abstract myth. What if it represents a real, observable phenomenon that the ancient Egyptians witnessed but did not fully understand in our modern scientific terms? What if they saw something extraordinary in nature and, with their brilliant, symbolic minds, ritualized it, transforming a raw display of power into a sacred mystery? Imagine the priests of Hathor encountering a dramatic natural electrical discharge, something like the ghostly glow of St. Elmo's fire dancing on a metal obelisk during a desert storm. Or consider the possibility that they observed the shocking power of the electric catfish, a creature native to the Nile which can generate a substantial jolt to stun its prey. They would have seen a visible, tangible, yet completely mysterious force, a light or a spark with no apparent flame, a power that could be felt but not seen, contained within a living body. This was not magic, and it was not invented technology. It was nature itself revealing a secret. The priests, as the scientists and philosophers of their time, would have been driven to explain and control this awesome display. They would have sought to replicate its essence, to harness its divine energy within the safety of their temple rituals. So they created a ceremonial apparatus, a ritual object designed to symbolically contain this force. The bulb-like vessel becomes a sacred container, a man-made womb to hold the serpentine energy they witnessed in the world. The coiled wire inside is not a filament in the industrial sense, but a symbolic representation of that captured lightning, that living spark. The djed pillar provides the ritual stability, grounding this volatile power in a controlled, ceremonial context. The entire scene then becomes a profound fusion of observation and belief. It is a spiritual reenactment of a natural event, a way to make the incomprehensible power of electricity a part of their cosmic order. They were not building light bulbs as we do, but they were almost certainly honoring, ritualizing, and attempting to command a physical force that we now know by name. This interpretation allows for a breathtaking synthesis. The mainstream Egyptologists are correct. It is a creation myth about the birth of light from a cosmic womb. But the alternative theorists are also touching on a truth, for that myth may be deeply rooted in the empirical observation of a very real electrical phenomenon. The priests were not electricians, but they were perhaps the world's first electrophysicists, exploring the boundary between the physical and the divine, and leaving behind a coded record of their awe. This perspective does not diminish their genius, it elevates it, revealing a culture that looked upon the raw power of their world and saw not just a mystery to be solved, but a god to be worshipped. This is the fundamental rule of archaeology, a discipline built not on isolated wonders but on patient connections. To understand a single carving, you must first step back and see the entire temple. The walls of Dendera are not a random collection of images, they are a unified text, a sacred scripture written in stone. The so-called light bulb panel is just one sentence in a much longer story. Surrounding it are dozens of other reliefs, each one filled with the same symbolic vocabulary. Here is the goddess Hathor in her cow form, emerging from the western mountain. There is the pharaoh presenting offerings to a lineup of deities. In every direction you see the lotus and the serpent, the djed pillar and the sacred eye, repeating in endless variations but always conveying a spiritual truth. The crypt itself is dedicated to the resurrection of Osiris, and every image within it contributes to that central theme. If you were to pull the light bulb relief out of this context and place it in a modern museum with a technological label, its meaning would seem obvious. But when you leave it embedded among its fellow carvings, its role in the mythological narrative becomes undeniable. This is how archaeologists reconstruct the past. They do not look at one piece and decide what it resembles. They map the entire puzzle, studying how the pieces interlock. The lotus flower in the crypt is the same lotus flower painted on a coffin lid to symbolize rebirth. The serpent is the same serpent depicted on a royal scepter to represent power. The meaning is consistent because the culture's belief system was consistent. To ignore this vast web of context is to risk a profound misreading. It is like hearing one word from a foreign language and deciding you know the whole story. The true meaning of Dendera is not hidden in a single cryptic image. It is illuminated by the 1,000 other lights shining all around it. That visual similarity is simply too powerful to ignore. Our brains are hardwired to recognize patterns, especially ones that mirror the technology that defines our own modern lives. We look at that carving and we see a light bulb because in our world, that is exactly what it looks like. This immediate recognition creates a powerful cognitive bias, a shortcut that makes the technological explanation feel instinctively correct. It is an idea that resonates because it uses our own reality as its reference point. This taps into a deeper, almost romantic yearning to believe that our ancestors were not so different from us. We live in an age of rapid innovation where new devices emerge every year. The thought that an ancient civilization might have shared in this same spirit of discovery, that they too could harness invisible forces for their own benefit, is profoundly appealing. It closes the perceived gap between their world and ours, suggesting that human brilliance is not a linear progression but a flame that can be lit, extinguished, and then rediscovered. This mystery endures because it is not really about a single carving in an Egyptian temple. It is a proxy for a much larger and more personal question. Have we, in our modern arrogance, fundamentally underestimated the people who came before us? The mainstream narrative of history often paints ancient cultures as intellectually primitive, taking millennia to achieve what we have accomplished in mere centuries. The Dendera Light challenges that entire framework. It whispers that perhaps they were not primitive at all, but simply different, with a knowledge base that was holistic, blending science and spirit in a way we have since forgotten. We are forced to confront the possibility that our own understanding of progress is incomplete, that a great library of human ingenuity may have been lost to time, leaving behind only these cryptic stone fragments. This is not just an archaeological debate, it is a philosophical one about the nature of genius and the fragility of knowledge. The mystery captivates us because it allows for a more exciting and mysterious past, one where secrets still lie waiting in plain sight. daring us to look beyond the textbooks and see the potential for wonder. Two visions of the past now stand in stark opposition, each offering a complete yet conflicting reality. On one side, the entire weight of academic Egyptology insists this is a spiritual allegory, a beautiful depiction of a serpent god being born from a lotus flower to recreate the dawn. On the other, a persistent chorus of theorists sees a detailed technical schematic for an electric light, a fragment of forgotten genius. One story is written in the language of myth and symbol, the other in the logic of engineering and physics. Both cannot be true, yet both speak to a profound human truth. We are driven to find ourselves in the past, whether in the shared awe of a sunrise or the familiar glow of a light bulb. This single carving forces us to confront the very boundaries of ancient knowledge. How much did they truly understand about the forces that shaped their world? Our modern timeline of invention is a comfortable, linear story, but history is rarely so neat. It is a tapestry woven with threads of brilliant observation, spiritual belief, and flashes of practical innovation that we are still struggling to comprehend. The silent stones of Dendera offer no final verdict, only an enduring question. The investigation does not end here, it begins with you. Look at the images for yourself, weigh the arguments, and listen to that quiet, persistent voice of wonder. The most exciting chapter of this mystery is the one you will write yourself. Share your conclusion in the comments below. What do you see when you look into the heart of the ancient light?